Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
Planet 76, everyone. Welcome to episode 100.
What number was that?
Episode 100.
Wow.
Episode 100. I have to be more enthusiastic about it.
Let's go.
This is episode 100. Special thanks to everyone who has been with the podcast for however long. You've been here since the whole time. That's great. You just joined yesterday. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But episode 100. Here's to episode 200. And thanks to Troy for making these episodes happen because he does a great job with producing and editing and all that. So,
yes, sir.
Thanks to you. Thanks to Troy. Episode 100, our Sixers free agency extravaganza, but there's nothing extravagant about what's happening with the Sixers in free agency so far.
That's correct. So we're on the eve of July now, recording on the 30th of June. Opening of free agency started about 5.5 hours ago at time of recording, and Sixers have not made any moves, though they have lost a couple guys off their bench, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about James Harden, who really made some headlines yesterday on the 29th by opting in on his contract and then apparently requesting a trade. Wild stuff. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the Sixers can do in free agency, just how much of a factor James Harden and what's going to happen there is going to play a role in what the Sixers do elsewhere, how much their hands might be tied based on what happens and how quickly the Harden move happens. But yeah, like Michael said, 100 episodes. This is crazy. And I second everything he said. If you joined episode 2 or 47 or 83 or yesterday, thank you, and we look forward to what's going to come. We're not stopping now. We're just getting started, baby. So 100 episodes. This is awesome. So, Michael, on those couple Sixers, though, that off the bench that have found new homes today in recent hours, George Niang, a 3-year deal with the Chicago Bulls, and Shake Milton, a deal
Cavs.
with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And why don't you just take a minute, acknowledge those guys, and just give me your thoughts on them moving on in their careers.
Niang signed with the Cavs.
The Cavs?
Yeah, 3 years.
Oh,
$27
yeah,
million.
that's right. Chicago is my
okay.
guy, Javon Carter. He signed with the Bulls.
Yes. Oh, wait, didn't he go to West Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Niang's with 3-year deal with the Cavs, yes.
Yeah. So for the Niang thing, obviously he was great in his run here, 40% from 3, very solid player. The Sixers had him on 2 years, $7 million. So looking back, that was a bargain basically, or even if it wasn't a bargain, it was just the perfect price for him. Because one, there wasn't a market for him. Nobody really knew who he was because he's playing in Utah. And it's funny. Troy and I actually discussed that on the podcast when the Sixers signed George Niang 2 summers ago now. Yeah, that's right. 2 summers ago now.
Yeah.
And now there's a market for him. Now there are a couple teams going after him. The Cavs ended up with him. $8.5 million. Yeah, he definitely set his own market by the way he played with the Sixers. But in my opinion, $8.5 million is a lot for Niang. So I'm okay with the Sixers not getting him back. Because if that was the market, if it was $8.5, $9 million, that's a lot for Niang, and I'm okay with the Sixers not re-signing him. And as for Shake Milton, definitely upset about that. I made a post about it today on my page, but Shake was probably, outside of Embiid, Shake was probably my favorite Sixer of the Embiid era.
Wow.
And I just was a huge fan of Shake. Like, I have his jersey. He's great. He had a really solid run here. But I think it was his time to move on. I think I don't know. He seems like he wants a bigger role.
Right.
And with the Sixers, I just don't think he's going to get it. He deserves it, but I don't think he's going to get it. So I'm okay with him going elsewhere to get that bigger role. Because with the Timberwolves, he's probably going to be their backup point guard, which is what he is. And on this team, he's not a backup point guard. That's D'Anthony Milton. So
right.
I'm okay with it. I wish Shake the best. I wish Niang the best as well. And, yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Two guys it was easy to be a fan of, for sure. I will say about Niang, obviously the last 2 years in the playoffs, Niang was, and this is an accurate statement, Niang was a better regular season Sixer than he was a playoff Sixer.
That's being generous.
Yes. At times in
You're
the
being
playoffs,
very kind to Niang.
That's right. At times in the playoffs, George, because you're in a series and because matchups and X's and O's are so important and so exploited at times, he became very much a liability on the defensive end and sometimes, found himself outside of the rotation in certain moments. And so that is one reason I'm not too upset about this, because we've seen it for 2 years, and you can only be such a good player in the regular season but not do anything in playoffs and us like you that much, right?
Yeah.
And then Shake, you said it well. I mean, looking for a bigger role. I hope he does well, right? We're going to be fans of Shake for his entire NBA career, and if our paths meet again, we're going to be rooting for him. We're going to be rooting for him as he ventures off in Minnesota. So there's that. But let's talk about the big news that hit yesterday that none of us expected. And I just want to be – so Sixers were eliminated from the playoffs a month and a half ago. Pretty immediately after the season ended for the Sixers, James Harden was linked to the Houston Rockets, right? Like it was like, James is going to Houston. He wants to go back to Houston. Here's what's going to happen. It's all but done. And then there was a shift, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. James Harden really likes what Nick Nurse is doing. James Harden wants to stay. James Harden is likely going to stay in Philadelphia. And then the day that he has to either opt in or opt out and become a free agent, James Harden opts in to his contract with the Sixers. You read that first line, you're like, oh, wow.
Hold on.
Right?
Just hold on. I have to stop you for a second. That is exactly what happened to me yesterday.
Yes.
I was reading Harden opts in. Oh, great. Okay. To work on a trade. And I was like.
Third line, yeah.
I was like, a trade? He wants to be traded? After all this, he wants to be traded. Nobody said anything about that up until this point.
No.
Right? Am I crazy or what?
You're exactly right.
Nobody said anything about Harden possibly being traded up until
Right.
yesterday at 6 p.m. whenever his deadline to opt in was.
Yeah.
At that moment, up until that moment, nothing of him wanting to be traded.
Right.
I was like,
crazy.
I didn't know what to say. I was like, what?
Right. I read an article today that said, this was the quote from them, I put it right here. It said, the NBA world is in shock after it was announced that Philadelphia 76ers guard James Harden opted in to his contract with the team and requested a trade. So, I say all that background over the last month and a half, what's transpired, how this rumor and then that rumor and then another rumor and then James Harden is staying. He wants to continue in Philadelphia. And then the only thing that wasn't said as a rumor is the thing that's happened. Right? Think about that. He opts in but requests a trade. He's apparently extremely upset with the Sixers. We're going to talk a little bit about what we might think that would mean, what we think that could mean. And, yeah, again, all this talk of what was going to happen with James Harden, and this is not what was expected on the eve of free agency yesterday. So, Michael, do you have any idea why he's upset? What's led to him requesting a trade? Why would he opt in? He was seeking a big deal. Did he find out the market wasn't there for him for a big deal? Like, what's going on in James Harden's head, and why did we arrive at a place no one expected? To you.
There's a lot of noise. There's been a lot of noise. I saw something that Harden possibly was upset that the Sixers waited so long to negotiate the deal because they didn't want to get caught for tampering like they did last year and they lost their picks. I saw something about how Harden didn't like how the Sixers handled the situation, which I just don't understand that, because you want a long-term deal with this team. Okay, sure. But the Sixers don't want to give you a long-term deal. Like, if you're at the end of the day, my number one question to Harden is, if you really want to win a championship, don't you want to do everything individually that you can do to help your team win a championship? If that means taking less money on a shorter deal, okay. Why is that an issue? To me, at this point, I think Harden just wants. I think James Harden just wants the money, and I'm not saying I blame him per se, but I'm holding him to him saying he wants to win a championship. And okay, he can do that with the Clippers, but
Right.
What's the difference between the Clippers and the Sixers when it comes to championship odds? Well, really not a whole lot. Yes, they have a better team, but there's also greater potential for those guys to get injured over there. Kawhi, PG. They've been more injury prone than Joel Embiid the past couple of years. So if one of those guys go down, you're probably not going to win a championship. So the deciding factor is the contract. He wants more money, and he also wants maybe an equally great chance to win a championship. But you're still riding on the fact that Kawhi and PG stay healthy.
Right. It's wild.
Wild.
It's wild. We didn't expect to be here. We're still trying to put the pieces together to this puzzle that is James Harden as to how we got here, and why he allegedly prefers to go to the LA Clippers if he were to get traded, and what that means for the Sixers. Then, even yesterday you still see it's possible, quote, that James Harden could remain a Sixer. A lot of people still saying that. I don't know. No one really knows, but I mean, if his first game next year is in a Sixers jersey, are Sixers fans going to boo him? Like, I don't think I would, based on the information we have right now. All we're hearing is reports that he's requested a trade, and he hasn't done anything outright toward Sixers fans or toward me or toward, what I mean, that's made me dislike him. I just am a little baffled, as is the NBA world, at what's transpired over the last few hours, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I think this is huge because you said it, as we opened up, Sixers haven't made a move yet, and I'm starting to think that there's not going to be many moves made until this situation resolves itself. And I do think, fortunately, it's not like a Ben Simmons situation where if Harden's still a Sixer, he's not going to play. Like, he's going to play, I think. But if he's requested a trade, he's got a relationship with Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey wants to honor, his relationship and get rid of, dump the guy if he wants to go. But you've said it often on Trust Love and on this very podcast that Daryl Morey has been nearly perfect in his tenure with the Sixers. So what kind of package they're going to get back, I think we're pretty confident in what Morey's going to do. You don't want to rush things, but you don't want things to be so prolonged that, you miss out on some other free agent names. And they already have missed out on some that have been linked to the Sixers as possible targets, and they've already signed elsewhere. So what's your thoughts on the potential package? If it's the Clippers, if it's a 3-team deal, do you have does it have to be, you have to get a star in return? Can you get a haul from the Clippers of role players? Where do you sit with a return package for James Harden, what it needs to look like for you to be, okay, let's do that?
I sit more in the camp of, if it's the Clippers, which it seems it's most likely going to be, I'm okay with the potential haul of Powell, Morris, maybe Covington, maybe Mann. The contracts would have to match, so it's going to have to be Powell and Marcus Morris. And if you can get any three of Covington, Mann, Bones Highland would be cool too. Just a bucket getter off the bench would be kind of cool. Now, to the Morey point, I think I still think he's going to get what he wants from a Harden deal. Yeah. I don't think he's going to cheap out and say, okay, Harden wants to go, so I have to get rid of him. I see this as a Simmons situation where, you know what? Okay, the Sixers have 3 months to figure out a trade, which ended up being about how long it took to trade Simmons. But they have 3 months to make this deal. Daryl should be, and probably is, in no rush to do this. And sure, Harden might play if he's not traded by the start of the season. Thing is, he might end up doing what he did in Houston and Brooklyn, where he'll play, but he looks disinterested. He's not actually trying. And that wouldn't be great, because you have a guy who's supposed to be your second best player, your second star, moping around on the court because he doesn't get his way. That's not good. So Daryl's a smart guy. Like, I'm just going to keep it a buck. Daryl has done nothing to tell me and show me that he doesn't know what he's doing or doesn't have a clue what decisions to make. At the end of the day, this guy knows what he's doing, and he hasn't done anything to disprove that statement. So I believe in Daryl Morey. I have, and I've proclaimed this on this very podcast probably once every episode at this point. He knows what he's doing, and I'm okay with waiting. I'm okay to wait until August. A bunch of Sixers fans want this deal done today, tomorrow, yesterday. No, you have to be okay with waiting, and Daryl can do that. He did it before. He's going to do it again, and we should be okay with waiting too, because at the end of the day, it all comes back to he's going to get what he wants, and if he doesn't get exactly what he wants, he's going to get to as close to what he wants as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's obviously we all, the fans in us, like, we want this to happen ASAP. Doesn't work that way. However, I'll say the longer we wait, it's almost like the better I expect the package to be. Because, if the Clippers allegedly aren't putting George in any negotiations, aren't putting Kawhi out there, obviously. And so, if we're waiting 2 months, I sure hope he's getting like Damian Lillard or something, because if we're waiting 2 months, I don't want it to be, the Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Bones Highland package. You know what I mean? Because that could probably happen in the next 7 minutes. Like, if that's really what he wants. Yeah. I don't think that's what he ultimately wants, is a combination of role players from the Clippers. So I would say sort of like Ben Simmons, like the longer it went. I mean, remember the names being linked to Ben Simmons?
Everybody in the league was linked to Ben Simmons at one point.
Buddy Hield. It was, guys that are very good. But we got James Harden. It took till February, but we got James Harden. And so I think similar, the longer it goes, I think the more we see just how, tight Daryl Morey is playing his cards, and how tight he's holding on to James until something that he wants, to your point, is available. The longer it goes, I think that's just, we're going to see an inside scoop into what he's asking for.
Right.
We saw the alleged what the asking price was for Tobias Harris, and it was an absolute haul from the Cavaliers that he wanted. So I don't think it's going to be anything less for James Harden.
That's the thing. Like, people see that, what he supposedly offered for Harris, the deals he had or he had asked for Simmons. Like, this dude, yes, I know it's Harden versus Simmons. It's very different. The situations are quite different at this point. But this dude got exactly what he wanted for Simmons. He waited. He waited.
Took time.
He was offered. He said, this is what we want in return for Simmons. And he got better than anyone could have ever expected. So all I'm going to say, again, is this dude knows what he's doing. Like, he's not just here trying to ruin the franchise for his own enjoyment. He's here because he wants to make the best moves possible. I'm sorry to say, but this dude is extremely rational. Just because you don't see what he's doing doesn't mean he's doing something wrong or he's not doing what he should be doing. Like, just because he's not doing what you want him to do doesn't mean he's not doing the right thing.
Yeah, preach.
It's just so annoying. Like, people are like, oh, James Harden has to get traded now. I want this, this, and this. Stop. That's not how you just said it a couple minutes ago. That's not how this works.
Right. Yeah, as much as we all want it to, and for this to move quickly. And again, concern number one is what I said a moment ago of, okay, if this goes a long time, I sure hope he's cooking up something real good. Concern number two is if it goes a long time, what are we losing out on? Because, I mean, every year since I can remember in free agency, since it's been, a hot topic over the last several years in the new age NBA, Sixers were making moves a minute into the free agency. And we're sitting here again. It's not like it's 7 days in, but we're 6 hours into free agency, and Sixers haven't done a thing. And I think James has a lot to do with that. So that's my other concern is, okay, how much is this going to limit what the Sixers do? You lose Niang, you lose Shake. Jalen McDaniels is still free, another notable. Paul Reed, restricted free agent, so Sixers can match any offers there. I just looked, as of an hour ago, Hoop Central tweeted, the top remaining free agents. There's Brooke Lopez, Austin Reeves, Dylan Brooks, Grant Williams, no thank you, Max Strus, P.J. Washington, Jay Crowder, Dante DiVincenzo, that's an interesting one, D'Angelo Russell, Patrick Beverly. So there's names out there, but they're not going to be out there that long. The other interesting thought was apparently Clippers in either two separate deals or one massive blockbuster deal linked to Tobias Harris. Now, if you send out Tobias Harris and James Harden to L.A., then the return you get better be pretty good. It better include someone by the name of Paul George at that point. Kyrie Irving's been but Kyrie Irving signed with Dallas. I saw an article about a trade with Dallas for Harden. Who knows? But I mean, what's gonna happen? Is Tobias Harris gonna be in a Sixers uniform to start next season? What's your thought there? Yeah.
Yes, he is.
All right. Every year, it's like, what's he gonna do?
He's not getting traded. I'm sorry, it's not happening.
Which I'm okay with.
There was again these reports of this team likes Harris. This team likes Harris. Okay, well, if they liked him so much, wouldn't there have been a trade by now? Okay, you could point to Daryl Morey's crazy asking price, but I'm sure he would have come down a little bit on the deal. He's going high, which he should do. But if there's a reasonable deal on the table, he will take it. And Tobias Harris is still here. So clearly there was nothing actually offered that he thought was reasonable. And obviously he's not going to say, okay, it has to be Jared Allen and whatever else he asked for. That was just to shoot the price high up, which, is fine. If there's a reasonable deal on the table, he'll take it. Just hasn't happened.
Yeah. Yeah. What I find interesting about where the Sixers sit right now as we close out June and head into free agency is, there's potential, say what you will about James Harden, there's potential for the Sixers starting lineup and several players off their bench to be the same. And we're talking about the NBA in 2023. That is rare. I don't know how many starting lineups or 6, 7 guys are going to roll out the same for teams in the NBA. It's not going to be many. But then you flip the other side of the coin. It's like this could be a very different looking team here in a few months. And so a lot of people, and I want you to speak to this, a lot of people that you see in articles gearing up toward free agency is this is a huge offseason for the Sixers. In the Joel Embiid era, their window for a championship, whatever they do this offseason is going to be huge for their championship window being what it is, or them, really reaching that next level, or if they make mistakes in this offseason, that window's going to close. Maybe Joel's gone in a year. Maybe this is going to happen. Maybe they're going to be rebuilding soon. Because there's only so many years you can be where the Sixers have been without, for lack of a better way of saying it, blowing it up. So your thoughts on, again, some of those reports that are saying how big this is for the Sixers. Is that valid? Yeah, just talk about that a little bit.
A little bit or a lot, because I have a lot. I got
a lot of it. Let's go.
Well, it is big now that Harden wants to be traded. Long story short, but before, when the consensus was Harden's re-signing, or it's looking like Harden's going to re-sign, it wasn't as big, because from my perspective, I'm thinking, okay, we run it back with Harden. Because guess what? This team was one game away from the conference finals. It seems like we've all forgotten about that. So, somehow, I understand the way the Sixers went out this year, but they were just one game away from the conference finals. With the exact same team that they would, in theory, have had entering next season. Minus maybe Niang. Maybe he still leaves. Maybe Milton still leaves. Okay. Minus Niang and Milton. The exact same team they just had that almost made the conference finals.
Yeah.
If Embiid and or Harden played 10% better, they go to the conference finals. People have such narrow vision when it comes to that. Like, I don't know if people just forgot, but the team as it was currently constructed was about to make the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they could have made the finals. Who knows? If they had gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals, fair game. Anything could have happened. Sure. So we're talking about the exact same team running it back next year. I think the same thing could have happened. I think they could have made the conference finals or the finals next year. So they had everything they needed. They were right there. They weren't lacking the talent. They lacked effort from Harden and Embiid, which that can change. If Embiid doesn't get hurt next year, they're going to the conference final. Like, now that Harden wants out, it's pretty big. Before, it wasn't. Before, we were looking at the same team that almost just made the conference finals. That was a 10% better, 10% or better game from James Harden going to the conference finals. They were up 3-2 on the Celtics.
Right, you make a couple shots to end Game 6, right?
That's it. Above all else, they were up 3-2 to go to the conference finals. This exact same team was up 3-2 to go to the conference finals, including three nuclear meltdowns from James Harden. And that's in that series alone. 3 nuclear meltdowns from Harden alone. They were still up 3-2. And they were one game from the conference finals. This exact same team.
Yep. That was one of the craziest things I've ever witnessed in my life. We talked about it last time we recorded, but oh man, James Harden's up and down performance is something that needs to be a 30 for 30 in the coming years. So how do you even do that? But I think that was very well said, because you bring this team back, and again, if they were to do that, you got to like your chances, right? You got to like the potential there. Another year under their belt together. Again, something you don't see often in the NBA, keeping units together for an extended period of time in today's day and age. And now with this hard news, if he's really gone, it's obviously, that's the primary ball handler, it's going to be a different looking team. Now, who goes with him if Tobias is gone, or, again, several bench pieces already left, but it's going to be a different team. And I think, to me, what scares me a little bit about the potential of getting a return of some very good players from the Clippers, but not the superstar in PG or Kawhi, is it enough? Are we going to be worse? Is it... Now, again, you look at, not that I think you have to follow the championship model of the Nuggets, but they have one true superstar. They have a very good star player in Murray. And they've got some other guys who are very, very good and pretty comparable to some of the pieces you'd get in a return, Norman Powell of the Clippers and those kind of guys. Is that the new model? That you only need one superstar and Joel Embiid and, or do you go for the big threes of old and you keep trying to do that? And, is Maxey good enough to be a second best player on a very, very, very good championship level team? I don't know. Right. So does that mean to you it's got to be a Damian Lillard? It's got to be a Paul George? It's got to be, who else were they linked to today? Zach LaVine? I mean,
I don't know if Zach LaVine is good enough either, honestly.
What's the answer?
But that's the thing is, like...
It's valid.
Well,
and then you throw Paul George, because if Paul George plays like he has the last 3 years,
he could be a number 2.
That's an issue.
For sure. But if he's hurt... That's big.
I mean, what do you do here? What do you do, Daryl? Because, again, that concerns me, and obviously concerns you, is, okay, this championship window we're talking about, if we go get 3 guys for James Harden that are, really good, solid NBA players, is it going to translate to us getting over the hump? I'd feel much more comfortable for us getting over the hump instead of 3 guys from the Clippers. You go get Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Let's just be real, right? We'd all feel more comfortable with that. But we don't know what's going to happen. So, anyway, it appears Harden has to be, in some ways, the first domino to fall. And we're going to ride it out here on Planet 76 to see what happens. Any other thoughts there on Harden, on free agency in general, as we finish up our 100th episode?
No, nothing. Knowing this, though, usually what happens is everything happens after we post the episode. So tomorrow the trade will happen, and of course we had recorded tonight, so the trade will happen
when everybody's listening to it.
Right, like, these guys, the trade happened. What are you talking about? Well, check the date, please, because this was from last night.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. Keep in mind we're recording Friday night, the 30th of June, heading into July as we speak, late night, and again, we're along for the ride to see what happens with James Harden and this shocking news. We'll be there to update with our next episode. Maybe something's happened. Maybe something hasn't. Maybe the Sixers signed somebody at some point. And we'll see what happens there. We'll see what they get in return. We'll see if any of these superstars in the league are available to help us feel a little more comfortable heading into next season and heading into our next 100 episodes. So we'll see you next time for episode 101. This is Planet 76. Tell a friend, and we'll see you next time. Peace. If you are a Philadelphia 76ers fan, this is the podcast for you. Planet 76, a weekly podcast covering all things Philadelphia 76ers. We'll see you next time.